Okay, welcome to Cool Club's first podcast, and we are going to start our series with Mark Timms, who is our CEO and founder. And some would say, I would say, the founder of really independent club fitting. Do you agree?
Maybe. I don't know about founder of independent club fitting, but certainly been in it a long time.
Okay, well, tell us about that. How did you start getting into the golf industry itself?
Well, interestingly enough, I started playing golf when I was probably 14, 13, 14. Because I couldn't beat my dad at tennis. So he had not played much, but actually won mixed doubles at Wimbledon a million years ago. So he was a good tennis player. So
Okay.
played golf in high school and stuff, and went to college and got a slight scholarship to go play golf in college, and started playing and hurt my back, so I didn't end up playing. But I played around at the driving range across the street from the college, and the guy there actually built clubs and stuff, so I started tinkering with clubs and all that stuff. Didn't think much of it. Hurt my back a few times in college, and ended up not playing because it kept bothering me. So decided it was better to finish college than stay in bed and back pain pillars and that stuff and hang out and do nothing. So I went actually started off in banking. So I worked in a commercial bank for 3 years. Kind of got bored. My passion is to build stuff, right? So building golf clubs or houses or parts or things, whatever it is. I just like building stuff, and I like helping people. So 1990, I opened a store in Connecticut, Custom Golf of Connecticut. Borrowed some money from a bank, an SBA loan, because I was in the banking business as a credit analyst in the commercial lending. So I learned how to borrow money, and that was basically the start. Had that store for 10 years, and then moved out here in 2000 and opened Hot Sticks as the next one.
Okay, so the first store, what was it called again?
It was called Custom Golf of Connecticut.
Custom Golf Kit.
Stanford, Connecticut. Yeah.
So, I mean, you've come out, you've basically been with this guy, you've learnt some real basics
Yeah,
on how to
exactly.
assemble clubs.
Yep.
So, when did you first like form a concept of okay, well, there's some space in this market to improve?
Right.
Was that with that company?
Yeah, no, actually, he helped us a little start. It's a guy named Jim Loudenschlager from Florida. He's still in the golf business, kind of interesting guy. But no, I didn't really think about it at the time, when I was playing around in college, that I was going to end up doing that. I just was working at a bank for a while. My stepmother at the time said, you want to do what you like to do. And what do you like to do? And I thought about that for a while. I said, well, I like golf because I took up golf again in the banking business. There was an option to either sit and work all day or go play with customers when they found out I was a decent golfer.
Yep.
So I started playing golf again. But like I said, I always liked to build stuff, and kind of came up with this idea that once I started playing golf again, custom clubs made a lot of sense. So we started off with mostly knockoffs and stuff like that was cheaper, and that's how we started. But that branched out into Callaway, TaylorMade, and Titleist, and building all kinds of clubs.
So, do you remember what your first set was that you started to play with at a decent level?
Like when I first started playing?
Yeah.
Oof. At a decent level, my first set of clubs, I think it was a set of Tommy Armour PGAs.
Okay.
Really old ones, yeah, blades.
You had a recollection of thinking, okay, well, I can make these better, or
No, not really at the time. When I was playing, I didn't really mess with clubs that much. I bought some clubs here and there, but not really a tinkerer to that extent. There really wasn't. It didn't really exist back then, right? So we're talking some 30 years ago. So
so then the foundations, and I kind of picture it. I track it back, and I think,
right.
okay, well, what came first? Did you think, okay, well, we can assemble, like we can build something that's going to perform better, or did you think we need to capture data on what this golf club's performing like?
No, we really didn't have a lot of data capture stuff. So what we were working with basically was a swing speed machine. Kind of give you path, and that's about it. Pretty simple stuff. So it was just basically like a build clubs, for less money, better clubs than the guys were buying. So I really kind of believed in fitting.
Yeah.
And to be honest, when I started this, I just thought, 10 years from now, 100% of the population is getting fitted, right?
Yeah.
That hasn't been the case. Some 30 years later or so, still it's under 50% probably. But it's still growing, and it's growing a lot more in the last 5 years. It's really starting to take off. So.
Well, there's companies like us, but also the main, the OEMs, they offer their
Right.
own fittings, the basic stuff versus.
Yeah, that's really when custom fitting really took off. It's like 6, 7 years ago. I remember going to the golf show and things had kind of changed. The OEMs were willing to sell us components, and all of them. A few that I was surprised at. And the OEM shifted, 7, 8 years ago, or whatever. I remember the PGA show, and they kind of changed their mind about us. They were no longer a threat. They wanted to kind of help us. So, from the last 5, 6 years, custom fitting's really been big in golf, and it's been pushed quite a bit by the OEMs.
Yeah. I mean, so we're going to go, talking about Cool Club specifically now. So
Right.
we've jumped on 20 years.
Yep.
I think one of our big differences as a club fitting company is using the understanding of FM, frequency matching golf shafts, and understanding that frequency is an important measurement. When did you start to implement that into the industry?
Well, we use frequency. Right as soon as we opened, Custom Golf Connecticut, we bought frequency machines. This is when I became friends with Kim Braley, who now works next door over here from it was rifle shafts at that point, or FM Precision. And that's basically how we built. Most everything we built back then in irons was all steel. Started graphite, some graphite, but the majority steel. And frequency was just a good overall gauge back then, is the best we had of how stiff something was. We knew kick points a little bit and stuff, but we didn't know how that all affected things.
So did you do some, rudimentary tests in terms of performance on, lower FM versus higher FM for players to see if they had a gain?
And we kind of over time, kind of figured out which shafts work for what people, what kind of swing speeds, what kind of swings, and which ones go higher and lower. So kind of a guessing game more of what we used to do, that we do now. I mean, we know all those things now, but we didn't back then.
Yeah. So, moving on from that, I guess a little kind of teaser for people out there is the fact that, golf shaft technology, golf head technology has evolved to the point where even our software has got to kind of make a jump here, and FM is going to become a part of a bigger number.
Yeah.
So we're going to
exactly
start.
So frequency is a good measurement of golf clubs. Kim would say that, Dr. Mace, whatever. It's a good measurement of how overall stiffness, but it really measures the butt part of the club. But it's all we had, 30 years ago. Kim's dad actually invented the whole thing. But now obviously we look at frequency as a way to basically make sure everything's built the right way. It's a measurement, a gauge, but it's not, the end all of how stiff a shaft is. There's other things that play into that. The eye curve, the whole eye curve changes, how it plays, whether it's a low kick or high kick shaft. Torque has a big effect and weight has an effect. So we now look at all the things together, the overall picture of the shaft, which S3 gives us, over 100,000 pieces of data on each shaft, and we see how that whole shaft plays. So we've definitely advanced a long way.
And just for the viewers out there, S3 technology is a Cool Club's designed product initially, co-engineered.
Yeah, no, we designed it with Simone, who's an engineer we hired. We did some stuff with Acra way back when, and they kind of helped us with it. So, we've had it for some 7-8 years now, and got 4,000 shafts in database. And like I said, every shaft we put in, that's 4,000 models, not necessarily 4,000 shafts. So there's way more shafts than that. Cause at least 3, so usually 5 or more shafts of one model. So it's probably tens of thousands of shafts in the database. But it takes time to build all that up. But like I said, we get 100,000 pieces of data off one shaft, so we have a pretty good idea what all these shafts do.
Well, and it's a multiple use machine, right? So I think that's the big thing, is we can use it in-house. Our fitters can use it. We're using it to drive our software to help clients get a better experience, but also manufacturers approach us and they ask us to divulge information on what they produce.
Quite a few of the OEMs and even some of the shaft companies, actually quite a few of the shaft companies use that database and that information to do a couple things. Use it for R&D, quality control, that kind of stuff. That's one part, and we've helped with several companies help with design stuff based on what S3 says, and obviously Acra and True Temper are doing that now. But other companies have as well. And the other thing too is just a reference for all these shafts. So a lot of the guys on tour, the tour reps from shaft companies use it as a encyclopedia. Look up, because they don't know every other shaft from every company, but they know now they can pull it up one versus theirs and kind of select the ones and see if they're similar, and this gives you basically an encyclopedia of shafts. Basically.
Well, it's nice to start with a reference point as a fitter,
right,
or a builder. When a new shaft comes out, and you don't want every client, for the first 10 clients, to be a complete guinea pig.
Right.
The S3 gives you that reference of like, okay, well, we understand what that weight, that tip, that EI profile does for a player as a generic, and then at least you know who to pull it out for, outside of a manufacturer's recommendations online, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, the biggest thing we do, actually, and the reason we do all this testing and stuff is, we're trying to do the best job we can fitting, right? The biggest thing we run up against is, and obviously, companies like us or, other large, fitting companies have a different deal than the OEMs. So the OEM's just fitting one manufacturer. So Titleist's got 3 models. They got TSI 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe. They might have 4 models. We have hundreds. So we've got a lot of things to choose from. So all this research we do on shafts and heads really is to narrow down, what shafts and what heads work for what people. because in the fitting, we really want to narrow it down to 3 potential drivers really quick. I mean, with software.
Yeah.
Then we can really try those 3 clubs and figure out one of the best, tried some different shafts, and we narrow it down to 1, and we can do that before somebody wears out.
Which is a big key. As
huge
a
deal.
fitter in the
Yeah.
field,
Yeah.
and looking at our demographic as the generic, hopefully we can expand that demographic with our software and our technology. But guys that are 60 plus hitting a bunch of drivers, they wear out real quick. So we do need to just nail some things, and it has to come from a factual background. It can't be opinion based. So it's great that we're doing that. So
so we're actually going to start filtering everything in the beginning of the fitting based on a bunch of information that you just plug in. So 3 or 4 swings, and we can narrow it down to 3 clubs pretty quick.
Okay, now I'm going to test you a little bit. So there's a new number that we're going to come out with that's going to kind of replace FM. It's going to incorporate FM.
Yeah.
Can you, without giving away the secrets of it, what is that going to be based on to help us fit a player better?
Yeah, basically we're going to come up with like an S3, flex basically. So how stiff does it play? It will kind of, look at frequency obviously, but it also looks at EI curve and all that stuff, and it'll come up with a number. So 1 through 10, right? 10 being the stiffest, and 10, 1 being wet noodle, basically autoflex. So we'll rate them all that way, which is what we're using internally, but we're going to publish some of that numbers, So you get two drivers, for instance, and this is what's really misleading, and people kind of corner us on this a lot, is they think, well, frequency is not everything. It's not. I get that. So in our fitting software, we will come up with, a driver, and one driver for me might be 6.0, and one driver for me might be 7.0. That's based on all the characteristics of the shaft. Those 2 shafts would play the same, so in our scale system, they would both be a 7, say. But on FM scale, one would be a 6.0 and one would be a 7.0, right? But there's other things that go into it. There's the torque, there's the kick point, there's a lot of other things that we've learned over the years that affect how it plays for somebody.
Yeah,
it's a playability.
Playability
flex,
number,
yes,
right? Great. So,
and that's not what flexes are, right? So if you look at stiff, regular, and X on most companies, that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with how stiff they are.
No.
It does within that line. So the stiff is probably stiffer than the regular, and the X is probably, as those and that. But from one line to another, even the same company, a stiff Basara 50 gram shaft or something is not the same as a stiff 80 gram Tensei or something from Mitsubishi. They're totally different things. They both say stiff on them.
And I think that's some of the industry's issue that we battle with as a fitter, and even after a session, if somebody takes their information, which they're more than welcome to do, and then discusses that with somebody who's maybe not well versed on the understanding of differences in golf shaft flex, it can create some confusion. So, the S. A 50 gram S versus an 80 gram S is a massively different product. So you cannot just throw people under the S category. You've got to understand, their tempo, the club head that they're putting on there, their swing speed, or the club head speed. All of those things have got to factor in before you can start saying that stiff is correct. It's a specific type of a stiff golf shaft that's correct.
Exactly.
Or reg or whatever that might be.
So we'll do that with software. A guy take a few swings or whatever, and we'll get a pretty good idea how much load he puts on the club. And software will narrow down like 4 or 5 different, actually probably more than that, probably 7 or 8, 9 shafts, right? And then we'll look at, how high he hits it. And if he needs to hit it higher or lower, then obviously we go and, we got a little light issue here. So, then we go a little bit stiffer or whatever. So you can mess with all that stuff. But we really want to narrow down to begin with, what shafts we want to try. Because you don't want to waste somebody's time trying to swing. I don't need to hand you a ladies flex club to see if you hit it well.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just a waste of time, right?
Yeah.
So...
And that's the expert fitter's job as well,
is
to look at that. Having great people on the ground, which I think is another one of our, strings to our bow, is that, having all these products is great, and that's what makes us better. But having the people that give you the experience and get to a result quickly is super important.
Yeah, that's really the key. I mean, it's the experience of our fitters and stuff that really narrows it down. Now, we arm them with as much data as possible to help them. So, all the S3 data, all the robot testing on heads.
Stop there for 1 second. So tell me about robot testing. Like, we haven't covered that. We don't want to burn all this up in one episode, but give us a little outline.
Yeah. So, I've done robot testing for, I don't know, some 20 years or so. We did it way back when we had Hot Sticks Technologies. We were trying to do some automated fitting stuff. So, it's a great way to measure heads. It does you no good at all to measure shafts, but it's a great way to measure heads. Basically we do robot testing on everything. So on drivers, we do 9 points. We hit the center. We go up a ½ inch down, now to the right and left. So 9 points and check all that. Our basic speed that we measure to start with is 95 miles an hour, but we go 10 miles an hour increments up and down to test other stuff as well. So we basically run anywhere from 65 miles an hour to like 115 is kind of the ballpark of it. And from that, we get how all these, clubs fit different. And they're all different. Some are more forgiving. Some are a little hotter. Some just, spin less or high spin players, and some spin, more, which is actually a good thing for some people.
Yeah,
especially ladies and seniors. Right?
I think that's some of the thing, and we're going to have to tread this water because we're going to divulge some of this information out to the golf industry, and we don't want to annoy any manufacturers, and there really is no good or bad because people need to hit it higher, lower, and they miss it in the toe, they miss it in the heel.
Yep.
So we'll keep some of this under the hood for another episode, but we are gonna.
Yeah, we're actually going to we're going to start doing these podcasts and stuff. And the idea for this is, we have all this data and stuff. We keep it to ourselves to some extent, but we want to share it a little bit with the world. I mean, if we help other fitters, with some ideas and some information, that's fine. I don't have an issue with competition. I think it's a good thing. It makes us all better.
Yeah.
So if we can help other fitters do a better job, I'm all for that. We sell, Loft and Line machines to PJ Superstore and other stores. We
Major
sell machines
manufacturers
to everybody and manufacturers as well. So
yeah.
I don't have a problem. I mean, the idea is to help everybody get better at fitting.
And I think that really sings to me as what what you're about. You like you said right at the beginning here, you're a tech guy. You like building things,
right.
And we do a lot of that back of house. And I think this is what I want to expose to the golf industry, is that our core business is, of course, it's fitting and selling golf clubs, right? It's helping people play better golf,
right?
But behind that, there's a lot of work behind the scenes that people don't see that comes from the enigma that is Mark Timms and a bunch of other guys that we've got on the ground here. That
you got me, and then you got some smart guys.
Yeah, right. So I think that's a really cool thing. I think we keep sharing this information with everyone. We'll get you in. We'll get other guys back in that we can talk to, and just get this information out there. Let people.
Yeah, we want to actually publish some of this stuff. If it helps somebody determine what driver works better for them, have at it. It's real numbers, and a lot of the robot testing and other testing and stuff. There's parameters of how accurate the information is, whatever. There's always, variables. So we're not going to try and throw somebody on the bus because this one spins 100 RPMs less than that one. There's a margin for error, But what we can tell overall about clubs, let's let people know.
Do you know what? I think the best sentence is it gives you a chance. It gives you a better chance.
Yeah.
That technology is going to give you a better chance of getting it right because what people have faced from the very beginning and what they still struggle with today is, what is standard?
Yeah, that's a whole nother.
You can't. There's no standard. There's no one size fits all. So you do have to get in the mix of it. You've got to test products by hand, and no matter how much data we produce, you're still probably going to have to hit that and think,
absolutely,
do I like it?
Yep.
So our job is to get them there quicker.
Yep. And if we can help some more people along the way, that's a good thing too.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, let's do this again.
All right. That sounds good.
Thanks for coming in.
Talk to you later.